Do you ever struggle creating predictable buck movement on your property? In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how we created some of that predictable buck movement on a 32-acre property here in Ohio. This property is heavily timbered, it's got some rolling topography on it, and it dumps down into a large hub system at the southern portion of the property. And we use this strategic step-by-step approach to make this buck movement more predictable and more huntable. This design I'm breaking down is based off of my whitetail habitat blueprint, which is a 5-step plan that I use on every single property that I work on. If you're interested in checking out the full whitetail habitat blueprint, you can click on this link above, and that video will be the step-by-step process for all 5 areas of the blueprint. In the case of this video, as we're looking at this property, we're going to focus on 3 key points from the whitetail habitat blueprint. That is going to be secure hunter access, high odds food plots, and predictable deer travel. I'll show you all 3 key parts of the whitetail habitat blueprint in this video, using maps showing the design as an overlay, getting some drone shots so you can see the property from the air, as well as some POV shots so that way you get that boots on the ground access to see what this stuff actually looks like in the woods. And at the end of the video, I'm even going to go ahead and break down 2 different stand locations from this design so that way you guys get this in-depth look on exactly how all of these concepts of the blueprint come together. And by the way, I'm Greg Kazmersky. I help landowners all over the place design and develop their hunting properties, and I've helped a countless number of these landowners unlock potential in their property that they did not quite know existed. So with that, let me go ahead and show you exactly how we did that on this piece. So the first step in the design for this property was securing that hunter access. Now on any smaller property, secure hunter access is typically going to be that thing that either makes or breaks your hunt. Secure hunter access means that you can move in and out of your stand locations without bumping too many deer in the core parts of your property. You're not cutting through bedding areas or walking directly through food plots. You're essentially slipping through the property like a ghost. On this design, we use a north-south running access road along the east property line that lines up with multiple points of the property that provide us with an extremely low impact setup. Here on the map, you can see how we use different areas of the road to hunt some of the better locations on the property while avoiding some of those core deer areas where we know that when they're on the property, this is where they're going to be spending a lot of their time. Now, I want to be completely real with you guys. Not every stand location on this property has secure hunter access. In a few cases, we had to be just a little bit more aggressive and take advantage of some of the terrain and some of the travel pinch points that were going to end up being some of the most high odds stand locations on the entire property. Now, the key with these stand locations is that they're going to be hunted extremely sparingly on extremely tight conditions. These are stand locations that you're not spending a lot of time in. Now, hunts on this property in general are going to be extremely limited. And with that being the case, really getting to know what the landowner is going to be using this land for, I just felt that it was foolish not to get out there and take advantage of some of these high odd spots when the property in general is going to be a place that gets very little human pressure. With this property and honestly all others, dialing in that secure hunter access is going to be the foundation of a well-rounded plan, because if you don't have that secure access and the deer know that you're going to be there, it's much harder to have success consistently on your property. Now, after access, the next major piece of this design was implementing some high odds food plots. Now, these high odds food plots, they're not just going to be feeding areas. These are going to be locations that we're anticipating daylight buck movement that's going to pass in front of our stand locations with clean entry and exit in and out of these food plots. A high odds food plot is placed in a way that aligns with the natural flow of deer movement and really is going to influence those bucks to travel within bow range. They're shaped and positioned with a specific purpose in mind. Now, this property doesn't exactly have the space for a large destination style food plot. And honestly, even if this property did have that location, it would get burned out really quickly just with the smaller size of the property. Instead, we position these smaller food plots in close proximity to these bedding areas to help influence some deer travel near our stand locations. First one, a kidney bean shaped food plot, acts as a staging area as the deer exit the bedding and work into different sections of the property. It sets up perfectly for pass-through daylight movement. That staging area plot then connects to a second food plot, which is in the shape of a turkey foot. The beauty of this layout is how each toe of the turkey foot is a long, narrow trail that funnels deer movement into one focal point right in front of the stand location. Now the other thing you're going to see is how these plots are surrounded by thick cover with piles of debris used to influence how exactly the deer are going to pass through the plot in front of the stand locations and out into other parts of the property. So tactics like this are how you're going to change feeding plots into kill plots. Now, like everything else in this system, we're only going to hunt these food plots when the conditions are right. Low impact, high reward. Strategic food plots like these give you consistent daylight activity and play a big role in tying the rest of the habitat system together. Now the final point from the blueprint I want to touch on is predictable deer travel. This is where we take all of the pieces, access, stand locations, bedding, and food, and connect them in a way that shapes how deer naturally move through the property. So what exactly is predictable deer travel? It's intentionally influencing how deer move through your land so you can set up high odds encounters in daylight. On this 32-acre property, we use a combination of terrain, timber stand improvement in the bedding areas, and food plots to create predictable deer travel between the main points of interest. Each route is designed to connect bedding to food, food to food, or even circle around the anticipated downwind side of these bedding areas to create strategic opportunities throughout the property. That includes things like hinge cuts and drop trees in order to steer deer away from the places of the property we don't want them to travel and guide them into the places that we do want them to travel. One of my favorite examples is this water hole and mock scrape combo near the top of a drainage. I'm going to break down this stand location and one more later on in the video, but just know that this one checks all of the boxes. So this is how you can take any property that's a majority of timber, make that movement a little bit less random, and start to create these higher odds opportunities throughout the piece. When you have a really good idea of how deer are going to travel throughout your property, you're going to start hunting with a lot more confidence, and you're also going to bump a lot less deer on your way in and out of the woods. Everything starts to flow together, and that is going to be what takes a good property up to a great property. Now let's go ahead and take a little bit of a closer look at two different stand locations that we set up throughout this property. First up, the stand near the water hole and mock scrape combo. This setup checks all the boxes for one of those extremely high odds pinch points or travel funnels. Starting with your access, you've got this clean, low impact entry right off the east access road. There's no need to cut through any of the core bedding areas or food plots to get into your stand location. Next, we created this predictable travel here using an improved travel corridor that runs right along the top side of the drainage. The stand then is placed right in the middle of the pinch point, connecting bedding areas on both sides of this drainage. Now the drainage top is already going to be that natural funnel for bucks cruising between these bedding areas, but the improved travel corridor, mock scrape, and water hole are all going to be additional elements that give these bucks one more reason to pass through this exact spot. And even better, this same travel corridor leads directly to one of the high odds food plots that we talked about earlier. So you've got bedding, a water hole, a mock scrape, and a food source all connected, and your stand sitting right in the middle of it. When the conditions are right, it's really tough to beat a spot like this. Now the second stand that I want to highlight is going to be one that I call a high risk, high reward setup. It's one of the most intrusive locations on the entire property, but under the right conditions, one sit might really be all that you need to have success out of this tree stand. To access this stand, we're going to use an old dozer trail which lets us slip into the core part of the property as quiet as possible with as little of an impact as possible. And I want to be very clear on this. This setup that I'm breaking down is not one that you want to hunt more than once or maybe twice in an entire season. It's going to be a one-time in, one-time out kind of stand. So why exactly does this spot still make the cut? Because it's placed between great bedding areas and set up along a travel corridor that includes a mock scrape right at the dozer trail crossing. This isn't going to be a bed to food travel type stand. This is going to be built to catch bucks scent checking doe bedding during the rut. And the biggest key about this location is the proximity to these bedding areas. The nearby bedding is the first available cover next to the main food source on the property, which is going to make it a high odds locations for doe groups to be bedding. And when it comes to the whitetail rut, when the does are there, the bucks are never going to be far behind. So while this is going to be one of your riskier, if not your riskiest hunt on the entire property, when the wind is right and you're on the downwind side of that doe bedding area and it's right in the heat of the rut, when all of your stars align, this can be the spot to be on the entire property. Now let's go ahead and do a quick recap of what we covered on this 32-acre Ohio property. We started with our secure hunter access, using the existing east access road and the dozer trails throughout the property, allowing us to move through the property, doing our best to not alert any of the deer living on the property. Then we looked at our high odds food plots, small intentional plots placed in the natural flow of deer movement between bedding areas and destination food sources. Next, we covered predictable deer travel. How did we use the terrain and different habitat improvements to help guide deer movement right down into bow range? And finally, we broke down 2 different stand locations that show exactly how these principles come together while you're out in the field. One low impact and consistent, the other high risk, high reward. Now, if you're interested in a full breakdown of this property, including a full breakdown of the design and additional stand locations, you can find that inside of my Next Level Whitetail School community. And if you're interested in a custom design like this on your own hunting property, you can check out my consulting services. I added a link for that down below. I'd love to help you build a whitetail system on your property that actually works. So if you found this video helpful, please go ahead and hit that like button, drop a comment with your biggest takeaway or question from this design, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that way you can see future design breakdowns and all of the other content I have coming your guys' way. Thank you for watching and good luck out there this season.